Good people, good people, good people. Welcome to the first solo edition of Hospitality Hacks Pro podcast. It is your host, the one and only Tasha Jackson, and I'm solo today. It's just me, no guests. And I realized I was thinking, reflecting the other day, and I realized I haven't really taken the time to introduce myself to those who don't know me. We haven't had a chance to really meet and really talk yet. So, that's the premise of today's show. Usually, when I have a guest on, it's all about the guest and their journey in culinary arts and hospitality or any field related to it. Kind of what they've learned, what they've gleaned, how they interact and relate to topics that are going on in the space. But today, it's about me. I want to tell y'all a little bit about me for those who don't know me. So, it all started March 7th, 1984, Oakland, California, Kaiser Hospital. That's where I was born. Born and raised Oakland, California. I have one sibling who is also in the culinary arts space, hospitality space. My sister, who co-authored this book with me, Above Average Service, 10 Keys. But you know what? Let's bring it a little closer. Let's bring it a little closer. 10 keys to unlock repeat guests and increase sales for your restaurant. Now available on Amazon, by the way. Link down below. But that's not the beginning of the story. Let's circle back. Let's go back. Okay. My very, very, very first job ever was at Boston Market as a cashier. I had to be about 16 years old, summertime from high school. And that was my first taste. That was my first taste of the industry. I don't have very clear recollections of applying for the job, um, but I was there, full effect, and learned a bit. I couldn't do anything in the back of the house, so I couldn't cut the chicken, wash dishes, cook any of the food, preparing any of the food because of my age. Right. So in most places, you have to be at least 18 to handle knives and things of that nature. Right. So cashier, I got started in the front of the house and did that for a little bit. I think it was one summer. Right. Um, and had a couple of good customer service lessons. One day, I remember this lady was very adamant about giving me exact change. Not sure why, but she was so adamant that she left the line. There were multiple people behind her in line, left the line and go to the car to get change to come back and pay, but the amount was still wrong. So she was arguing, going toe to toe with me about the amount. I don't remember the amount, 47 cents, something small. And the manager had to intervene. That was my first taste of the customer is always right. Even when they're wrong, the customer is always right. That was my first glimpse into that colloquialism, as they say. Because I know the lady was wrong. She was wrong. She counted the money wrong. The amount was wrong. But the manager was like, Tosh, it's okay. Just let it go. So I'm like, all right. Right. My very next job after Boston Market was Casey's Barbecue in Berkeley, California. And that's really where I attribute falling in love with the industry, working at Casey's. It was family owned. Um, and it was just like the love of the people in the neighborhood, the good vibes, family coming, cousins coming through, right? So it's owned by a second cousin of mine who the restaurant was passed down to him from his father. And so it was just like it was the first time I really felt connected to my extended family, really, to be honest. And so it was a lot of that. It was the good vibes, the atmosphere, the neighborhood, support from people in the neighborhood, family coming through, cousins working there. So it was exciting. It was my first taste of independence. My very, very first job, I was making money, but it's my first time with money. And when you first get money, you don't know. You don't know what's going on, right? So I'm just But now I'm experienced now. I know what to do now with my money, right? And so it's my first taste kind of a freedom. Wanted a cell phone. My parents were like, we're not getting that for you, but it's okay because I have my own money, right? So that was the first time I really was like, oh man, this is just an awesome place, an awesome environment to be, right? So worked there for several summers, um, throughout high school as well, up through graduation, and then my parents always told me I had to go to college. No idea what I wanted to do, but that was drilled into my head over and over and over. You got to go to school, got to go to school, got to go to school. So I applied to UC Davis, did a year there, undergrad, undeclared, no idea, just taking classes. Um, I was bored. It felt like high school. There were quite a few people from my high school there in attendance. And, my roommate was like, not super excited. Like it was just like, it was a meh experience. And it was just like, it's just cows and trees. I remember thinking that, like, it was just cows and trees everywhere, nothing to do. It wasn't what I had in my mind of what the college experience should be. And I worked all through college, right? And so coming into that environment, again, not knowing what to do, what to study, the only experience I had working was food service. And so I went to the cafeteria and talked to one of the managers. I said, hey, I need a job. And they're like, what can you do? I was like, what do you need me to do? They're just like, we need some help with catering. Throw me in, coach, right? So they asked me a couple of questions, some food safety questions. I took some type of test. Pretty sure I failed it, but they hired me anyway. Um, I got hired as a catering associate for Sodexo. And Sodexo is a corporate brand that does feedings in cafeterias, hospitals, things of that nature. They don't just do food, they do lots of different corporate services as well. Um, Similar to Airmark, similar to Compass, Airmark and Compass. If you've ever heard of those companies, they're all kind of in that same family. They do like linen services and other. It's like a whole lot of different services. But I was in the food service catering department specifically for Sodexo at UC Davis. The hours were sporadic, because we mostly did on campus events. So sometimes they would have stuff, sometimes they wouldn't. But, you know, in school also had refund checks and other sources of income. So it was kind of like, okay, to have a little part time thing going on. Did that for a bit. That was my first taste of really catering. And then I had some friends that went to Clark Atlanta University. This was not planned. I just happened to throw this on because it was in the back of my car and it was raining outside. But had some friends who went to Clark Atlanta University, CAU, and went to visit them. And I was thoroughly impressed by the experience. I was like, this is what college is supposed to be, right? It's a historically Black college, a lot of soul. Atlanta's Atlanta. Like, it's a great place to be ambitious and young and Black and trying to make a way for yourself and network and all that kind of stuff. So went to visit them and I was like, Davis, gotta go. So I transferred from UC Davis and applied to Clark Atlanta. Um, got in and still had no idea what I wanted to do, mind you. No idea. I decided to study mass media arts because it sounded fun, sounded creative, sounded interesting. Had never really thought about anything in media really prior to that. Um, so started studying, still needed money. So although my parents were always pushing me to go to college, we weren't exactly prepared for a college opportunity financially. So I worked all through school, always was working. So I found out that Sodexo also operated the cafeteria and dining services at Clark the same way they did at UC Davis. So I went to the catering manager, like, hey, previously worked for the company, got a little experience. What can I do? Can I help? Can I apply for a position? And she hired me. And what's her name? Linda, Miss Linda, hired me. Started catering there. At this point now, it wasn't really, the part time wasn't enough anymore to really kind of sustain me. So I also became a RA, a resident assistant. So I was helping to run one of the dorms there, and so also working and full time in school. And just I kind of was just going day to day without a real idea of what I wanted to do. And that part to me, I think is why I'm passionate about what I do now. I'm gonna fast forward then rewind back to the story, but part of what I do now is I'm a high school culinary arts instructor. Uh, Specifically, actually, the license that I work under is Family and Consumer Sciences, which is more than just culinary arts. It can encompass multiple things, but what I'm teaching right now is culinary arts and hospitality, and it's just to help guide young people, to let them understand that there are a lot of opportunities, and it's okay to explore different things. I think that um, I had that idea in my mind that it was okay to explore, and try something and see if it works, and if it doesn't work, okay, and if it does, cool. But I think there's this intense pressure to know what you want to do with your life at 17 or 18 or 20 or 21. It's like, but it's okay to explore some things, take your time, figure out what you like, what you don't like. So back to the story, rewind back now. So I studied mass media arts, and it was okay. Like, I was not super, super passionate about it, in the sense of some people feel like, oh, I always wanted to be a filmmaker and tell stories, or like that was never my position. But I enjoyed it, right? So I learned kind of the basics of editing and shooting video and producing television. And so still steadily catering along the way, get to graduation time, right? Um, Still don't really know. Still don't really know what I want to do. I started working for I kept working through a um television station connected to the school. Like, we ran a twice daily live television news show. Um but it was like part of the school, but it wasn't. It was its own network, but we used the studio and the equipment there. So did that, and I bumped my head a lot. I bumped my head a lot. Not so much with anything to do with the production or the job itself, but the people piece. I was strong-willed and hard-headed and had a lot of ideas, but didn't know how to communicate those ideas without being combative with the people who were over me. And it caused a lot of friction. It caused a lot of disruption. And I don't think it was necessarily a case of being right or wrong. It was more so, this is how I feel. I want to be heard. This is the action that I want. This is the response that I want. And when I was not getting the response that I wanted, then it's like, I'm going up to the next person, the next level up, then the next level up, next level up, right? So I learned through that experience eventually how to have somewhat of a softer touch when dealing with people, right? And so it's not always about right or wrong, black or white, but how you handle people, speak to people, how you maneuver when you um, are not getting the responses that you want, or feel like that people aren't doing the things that they need to be doing. Right. So I learned from the experience. Television news wasn't for me. It was, I even now to this day, 20 years later almost, I don't watch very much news. It's depressing. It's very rarely positive. And so doing that and seeing that every single day, I was like, ugh, ugh, like drained. And so I was like, I can't do this. Right. I didn't want to do reality television, which was super, super, it's still hot now, but that's when it was first getting super hot. Right. Didn't want to do reality television. I always kind of had a entrepreneurial kind of bug where I wanted to have my own business and wanted to um, strike out on my own in some way. So at that point, I decided to, I was kind of doing some gigs on the side. So I would videotape like parties, special events, weddings, showers, things of that nature, and edit the footage, put it on DVD, give it to the customer, right? So I decided that I was going to do that full time. No business experience, no mentor, no template, no blueprint. I did have the fact that I had done a few gigs and had a couple of people kind of on my client list, mostly word of mouth. And then I had a couple of online postings. Jumped out there. I jumped out there. No cape. So it was cool. Summer and spring, lots and lots of events. Stayed busy, stayed, going, 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 going. Fall and winter would taper off a little. And so I didn't understand the concept of when things are great, kind of store your nuts for the winter. I didn't understand that. It's like when things are great, spin, 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 baby, spin, right? So when we got to the hard parts, the lean months, it was like, okay, this is tough. So did that for a little bit. And I got to a point where I was like, I didn't want to go back home, right? And so I know a lot of people after college have that story. They go home for a while, but I didn't. I didn't. I couldn't go home. I could go home, but I didn't want to go home. I'll put it like that. I did not want to go home. So I said, how do I make it through this? Like, how do I put a band-aid on these lean months? And so once again, all of my experience was food service outside of mass media arts. And so I said, you know what? I'm going back. It's never done me wrong. Industry's never done me wrong. Um, and so I say all my experience was food service, but also I'll say this: when I was at UC Davis, this just came back to me. When I was at UC Davis, I also worked at a call center. So I was doing catering and I was working at a call center for the school where we would call alumni and try to get donations for the school. And I wasn't bad at it, but I didn't necessarily enjoy it. I was pretty solid though. I hit my numbers on that, but it's like calling people asking for money and the money's not for me. But, so anyway, I went back. So I went back to Sodexo again. So at this point, I've worked for Sodexo twice, once at UC Davis, once at Clark Atlanta, both times in the catering department. Went, did some television news, stopped doing that, went and did some entrepreneurial ventures, videotaping special events. And now I'm in a place where financially I have to make something shake. Got to get this money by tomorrow, right? So I went back to Sodexo this time. Um, I applied to be a supervisor at Emory University. Um, I think I saw they had a posting online. They had a job fair, and I might have even saw it in the newspaper. And they had a job fair, so I showed up at the job fair, applied, and actually one of the managers was like, "Why didn't you apply to be a supervisor?" Because I applied for like a cashier position or something like that. He was like, "Why didn't you apply for a supervisor position? You've got this experience." And I was like, "Okay." So I applied for a supervisor position and got it at Emory University. So I started working at I worked multiple positions there because they had multiple outlets. But I started at Einstein Bagels. They had two different Einstein Bagels there on Emory's campus. So the one that was in the main, I wonder if it's still there. The one that was in the main campus, I started there. I didn't know anything about being a supervisor at all, but it was on the job training, right? So worked there, serving up bagels, lox and bagels, cream cheese. Um, and then they needed a supervisor at the other Einstein because there were two. So they moved me from the first location to the second one, which was smaller and a little bit less busy. So I had a chance to really refine my skills and focus because it wasn't as like hustle bustle day to day like the first location. So did that. I was there a while. Um, I feel like I was there a total of maybe 3 years altogether. I'd have to look back at my resume and see, but I actually think I took that off my resume. But then so I was there. Then they decided to open a Starbucks on the campus, right? So I'm just going through my history with you guys, like the deep dive of my experiences in food service and hospitality. They decided to open a Starbucks there at Emory University, and it was planned to be the biggest Starbucks on a university campus. So it was a big deal. It was connected to the bookstore. So it's projected to be very, very busy. So they needed um, the best of the best, if I do say so myself. And I was recruited to go from Einstein to Starbucks and did that. I learned a lot. The tricky thing about working at a place like Sodexo is it's kind of like you have three bosses. There's three sets of standards. So there's the Sodexo standard, there's the Starbucks standard or Einstein standard or whoever the retail brand is. And then there's the client. So then there's the Emory University in this case, the Emory University standard, right? So you're answering to all these different sets of expectations. Oftentimes they overlap, but sometimes they don't. And so it's a lot to manage. So got to the Starbucks, bumped my head again there. I bumped my head again there. There's this older lady there. We won't name names, but I don't know. You know, we were both supervisors, so there were four supervisors and a manager in that unit. Four supervisors and a manager. But the way that their internal system is set up as Sodexo's, you have supervisor one and then a supervisor two. Um, there's very little. The differences between supervisor one and supervisor two are very little, with the exception to pay. And so, um, I was like, I don't, you know, this person has a higher title than me, but we do the same thing from day to day. Okay. And so I had a little attitude. I had a little attitude. It didn't help that she would make little snide comments about her pay and position and money and like just little, just to needle, just to just like, it didn't help. Right. So it ended up being a whole thing. HR got involved. It was a whole thing. But I ended up getting being promoted. So I went from supervisor one to supervisor two. Again, my function in this particular unit didn't change very much, right? But the pay did though. But even with that movement and that promotion, there was still internal conflict happening there that I didn't navigate well at all. I didn't navigate that well at all. And I finally was just like, I got fed up being there. My time had just expired. You know, I think I learned everything that I could in the position that I was in. I wanted to move into management. It wasn't happening. I was applying and interviewing internally as an internal candidate, but just being young, again, not navigating the politics of the place well and things of that nature, I think was part of what was blocking me. And then I was getting frustrated. And so I was just like, I don't want to be here anymore. So I started kind of searching for an opportunity. So simultaneously, as I was working there, a friend of mine was like, "You should come over to Red Lobster. You know, it's a lot going on here, room to grow, blah 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 blah." So I applied to be a server there and started serving at the same time that I was a supervisor and at Starbucks for Emory University through Sodexo, right? So things are bumping along. I'm juggling both, right? I'm juggling both of these jobs and trying to see how I like it. What is my next move going to be? All of that. And in the midst of that juggling, here she come again, y'all. Now listen, I this was unprovoked. This lady, I don't know why she had it out for me. I don't know if she was threatened by me. I don't know what the situation was. I can't tell you what was going on in her head. But she started like getting in my business. Like, you're not supposed to have another job outside of this. It's against company policy and start quoting the handbook and da, da, da. I wasn't bothering nobody. I was just there was no conflict of interest. I wasn't giving away secrets, company secrets, or any of that, right? Um, so she was talking as if she was going to go to the higher ups and, tell on me. So I wrote a letter to our what you could call district manager and was like, hey, look, this is what's going on. I have this other job, not trying to have a conflict, letting you know, da 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 da, whatever, whatever. He pulls me to the side, like, what is going on? I'm like, I was told I was not able to have this second job. I wanted to let you know what was happening, da 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 da, right? He pulls everybody together for like this meeting, and I use everybody loosely. It's me, this lady, the manager, the other supervisor, and like one other person. We have this kumbaya meeting that's supposed to squash everything. He gives us a copy of this book about teamwork, and everybody copies of the book was the same except for the copy that he gave the lady. I'm just gonna call her the lady, except for the copy that he gave the lady, and he's like, "What do you think is different about her copy?" And we're like, "Different edition, better, well, I don't know, footnotes, we don't know, like we're just throwing stuff out. No, it's exactly the same. The only thing different is the cover. This is how he was making some point about like prejudice and prejudging and not judging a book by its cover and all this, sir. Okay. Yeah. So anyway, so we had this we had this coming to Jesus meeting. Did it change anything? Absolutely not. Was it effective? No, it made everything worse. Because now it was like it was almost like this lady was like throwing little tantrums and little fits for attention. Like she was much older. Like I think she was only working because she needed something to do, like one of those situations, maybe bored at home or something. Like it was just really it was just really becoming toxic now. Now I'm not saying I was an angel, because we were going tit for tat on some stuff. But at a certain point it just became like super toxic. I had this other job anyway, and I was like, you know what? For that reason, I'm out. I'm out. So I resigned. I gave a 2 weeks notice. Um, didn't want to burn any bridges, especially since Sodexo, I was able to go back to Sodexo multiple times at the beginning of my career. I didn't want to burn that bridge. So, gave a 2 week notice. I said, hey, I'm going to go all in at Red Lobster and try to grow my career there. You know, I told everybody I was leaving to be a manager. And mind you, I was a server at the time, but that was my plan. I was like, that was my plan. I was hitting roadblocks trying to move from supervisor to manager at with Sodexo. So I said, I'm gonna go somewhere where um my talents can be appreciated. So it's like I'm going to be a manager for Red Lobster. Like, all right. So I just went full throttle, all in as a server, cross trained as a bartender. I wasn't super good at bartending. I held my own, but it didn't give me the time to really talk to my guests the way that I like to do at the table. And it didn't give me the opportunity to really move the way I like to move. So when you're a server, you can go table to table, go in the back, come back. Like when you're a bartender, you're at the bar. Like, yeah, you can go get some food and come back, but that you're right here. Yeah, right there. Your guests are right there. And then you got the service well going, right? You got to make the servers tickets, got also make your drinks, take care of your guests and their food. It was a lot for me to and I wasn't giving the level of service that I wanted to give. So I was efficient, like I could do it, but I didn't like that role, the bartending role as much. But I did have, that experience there behind the bar. And then I was like, all right, how do I set myself up for success to become a manager? Because that was my goal. So I started shadowing the certified trainers at the store to become a trainer. It's like, I want to be a trainer. I basically was trying to build my own pathway, right? And so I would come in, shadow the trainers when they're training, listen to what they're saying, looking at the training books, all that kind of stuff. I would come in early before my shift and go in the back with the prep cooks and say, teach me, I want to help. Teach me what you're doing and prep. Right. So I was building, like I was conscious of what I was doing, but at the time I don't think I was even fully aware as I am now of the skill set that I was building. Um, and so, I was putting that time in, shadowing, asking questions, and learning as much as I could learn. And then I went to my general manager and I said, hey, I told him what I wanted to do, my aspiration. I told him that I wanted to become a service pro. So that is the equivalent of a supervisor. Essentially, you work underneath the managers and you help run the floor. Um, and he was like, basically, like, I see you, you know, I see you out here work. He said all the right stuff. Like, I see you out here working. I'm hearing the guest compliments at the table when you're serving. I have plans for you. Keep doing what you're doing. So I'm like, all right. So I kept doing what I was doing. And then I'm like, all right, what's up? Time kept on ticking on. And nothing was happening. It felt like forever. It wasn't. It wasn't forever, but it felt like forever. And I'm like, how long am I supposed to wait? Because I'm ready. Because mind you, I was already ready when I got there. When I got there, I was trying to. I came from an environment at Sodexo where I was trying to move up. I'm interviewing internally, like I'm on the track, right? And I'm being recommended for stuff, but I'm not getting the job. So now I'm in this new environment, and I'm like, you telling me the right stuff, you giving me the atta girls, the pats on the back, keep doing what you're doing, but what's up? It's like I don't want to keep hitting the same wall. So I started just looking online in at the internal site to see what management positions were open. And I took it upon myself to apply for a management spot. And I got 50% love and 50% hate for that. The 50% love was from, so the district manager ended up interviewing me, and I got the job. Like I tested well, and I got the job, and he was like, "How come I didn't know about you?" And I'm like, "Dude, I don't know." Because for what I knew from my vantage point, I was doing everything that I needed to do, right? So why that conversation wasn't happening, I don't know if it was a situation of we want to keep you in this spot because we need you here, or if my GM just really felt like I wasn't ready. I don't know because he never communicated that to me. All I ever got was, I got some stuff in store for you. Keep doing what you're doing. You're doing a great job. I like what I see. I never got any kind of feedback of what to do differently, how long I should wait, any of that. So I took it upon myself to just go online and apply for a management position, got the interview, tested well, was offered a position. The 50% hate came from my fellow coworkers who felt that they were next in line for the next management position. So there was kind of a like a unspoken um you're up next, right? I won't say hierarchy, but kind of like it was kind of a line. Like, all right, when the next spot open up, you've been being a supervisor for X number of years, and you'll be the next to go to training. You'll be the. I just bloop, bloop, just bypass that. So I did get some hate. I did get some hate for that. And in hindsight, I would probably do it again. I'd probably do it again. So became a manager for Red Lobster. Worked there for a number of years. Started as a bar manager. Moved to a service manager. They had a staffing and training position for a while, and then they took it away. And then I start noticing things. So I started, it's like initially I was so excited to be in position and just happy to be learning and elevating that was everything. So I kind of had tunnel vision. After a couple of years, when I felt comfortable in the position, I started noticing, the kitchen managers are getting paid more than all the other managers, right? And it's just things that you pick up on by conversation and again, just being aware. Usually the kitchen managers or chef managers would have a little bit more tenure. So and so I'm like, usually also, so they say that all management levels are equal in stature, but they are not. I noticed that as new managers came in, they always started them pretty much in the front of the house as a service or bar manager. And then if you wanted to become a kitchen manager, it was an elevated status and stature to that, and more involved inventory, ordering, things of that nature. So I'm like, all right. Okay, how can we get the most bang for our buck here? So I started having just brainstorming sessions about what I actually wanted to do at this point. Believe it or not, even as a manager in the restaurant space, I still wasn't committed to it as a career. It was just that if I felt like if I was going to do it, I might as well be the best that I could be and go all out. But it wasn't like this is what I want to do for the rest of my life. Like this is the space that I want to be in. But at that point, it's like I started to get really reflective. Like, if I were to do something else, what would I do? Like, what would I want to do? And if I were to stay here, what's the ultimate goal? Right. And so also at the same time, Darden, which was the company that used to own Red Lobster, started talking about selling the brand, which they did ultimately do. So at this point, when I'm having this like reflection point, the company I'm working for is I work for Darden via Red Lobster. Again, it's the same family as Olive Garden and Capital Grill and a bunch of other brands, Bahama Breeze, right? But they're talking about selling Red Lobster, which is kind of like one of the, you look at it as like the flagship, one of the flagships. So it's like, it was a lot of change happening. They're trying to get managers to stay. People were jumping ship. They're giving out bonuses, trying to get people to stay. And I'm like, if I were to make a transition now, would really be a good time, right? And so I decided to step back, step down, and go to culinary school. And so, pardon me, that was my turning point from focusing on strictly front of the house really to now broadening my horizons to learn more about food and more about the kitchen and the inner workings of the kitchen. So in the midst of that, I kind of went back to my old ways of like, let me jump in, right? Let me see what I can learn. So I would jump on the line in the kitchen and start cooking and just trying to learn from the cooks and the prep people and all that kind of stuff. Um, just to absorb as much as I could, right, prior to me leaving. So step down, step back. I went back to serving. I went to serve at TGI Fridays and went to school full time. And then I also worked from home for a company. I wasn't good at that at all. Partially because I would be at home like halfway falling asleep because I was doing a lot and I was in school and working two jobs. And so yeah, it was bad. Oh man. But anyway, so I went to culinary school, Le Cordon Bleu, and learned a lot, met a lot of great people. And when I came out, um, went to Ted's Montana Grill. So that's my first time being hired as a chef. So I went directly into their kitchen. Ted's Montana Grills was intense. It was super intense. First time working in a scratch kitchen environment, because you know it's Red Lobster. Well, I'm not gonna ruin it for those of you who love it, but a lot of pre-prepared food. I'll just leave it at that. But Ted's was like we're literally grinding meat for burgers multiple times a day, hand cutting steaks, making salad dressings from scratch. There was no walk-in freezer. The freezer's like that big. It's not. You got some ice cream in there and a couple other things. Like we're not freezing stuff. We're making stuff fresh every day. Um, learned so much. I learned so much there. So, worked at Ted's. Um, what happened after Ted's? I decided to move. Um, and when I moved from Atlanta to Charlotte, I feel like I'm skipping something. I'm giving y'all the whole rundown. I'm giving y'all the whole rundown. So the whole point is to get to know me a little better and my experiences in the industry. So when I say that I've been in the industry for 20 plus years, it's not fluff. It's not fluff. I've been in this thing, y'all. I've learned a lot of lessons. I bumped my head a lot of times. In the midst of that, in the midst of that, I had a catering company with a former partner. In the midst of that, bought a food truck that was defective. Still tried to use it for special events. Got stuck in the rain on a hill one day. That was the end of that. Couldn't do it anymore. In the midst of that, in the midst of everything. So I've had a lot of experiences. I've been fortunate to learn from. So I went to Sodexo one more time When I left Atlanta and moved to Charlotte, I applied to Sodexo again, and this time I got that manager spot. Okay, and so as a multi-unit manager, which was the exciting part for me. So helping to run retail, helping also to run the Starbucks that they had at Mercy Hospital here in Charlotte. So it's retail, Mercy Hospital, and then cafeteria. So I also got a little sprinkle of a taste of what it's like to work in the hospital dining side, because we were all together, even though it's separate. We all worked out of the same kitchen. So if they were shorthanded and they needed somebody to run food to a patient's room or something, or help look at diets or put trays together for the patients, as a manager, I was able to flex and move. Right. So I got to learn a little bit about patient dining. But it was sad, you go into some rooms and people are close to death, and or families are there, they're mourning, they're sad. Um, it's just it was a lot. I was like, I don't like this at all. The part that I like about working in the restaurant usually is it's a celebration. People are happy. They're celebrating anniversaries and birthdays and things of that nature, and you get to be there to help be a part of their celebration. Now, every once in a while, maybe a family member passes away, maybe you just left a funeral or something like that, but for the most part, it's a happy time. And so to see that other side, that on the patient dining side, I was like, it's necessary. Somebody's got to do it. But I knew that wasn't for me. Like, I didn't like that at all. So while I was there, at Mercy Hospital, always again, the entrepreneurial bug never left. So had a side business going, and it started to eat up more time than the job would allow me to take. So it's using my personal time, using vacation time. And I finally got to a point where it's like, decisions have to be made. Like, I can't keep burning the candle at both ends, right? And so I asked for a leave of absence. I'm thinking naively, I suppose, that they would give it to me. I was honest about why I needed it. Like, hey, I've got this business I need time to get someone in position to help grow the business so I can still work, but I just need a little bit of time. I'm not asking to be paid or anything. I just need some time off. Request was denied. So at that point, it's like, what do you do? You know, what do you do? So I gave them their keys, gave them the badge. It's like, I gotta go. No plan. no, no money reserved. Nothing. Bounced. It was very impromptu. But I left and worked the business full time for a while. And because there was no plan, things got rocky. You know, I was married at the time. Things got rocky in the marriage, not only because of that, but other things as well. And just got to a point where it was like, decisions have to be made again. Decisions have to be made again. So I went back to work. So this is the second time now that I've done the entrepreneurial thing and then had to go back to work. So this time I went to work for Romano's Macaroni Grill. Romano's Macaroni Grill. And as the chef manager of the kitchen there. And it was cool. You know, it was cool. And actually the director there, Jason, I had worked with previously at Ted's. So we knew each other, and I had reached out to him like, hey, I'm in Charlotte. I saw on LinkedIn or something that he was covering the Charlotte area for a new company. So I was like, hey, you need any help? And he was like, do I? so so interviewed and got that, and worked there for a bit. And then COVID hit. We had to lay off um, pretty much the whole staff, and it was managers only working, and we were working like dogs. We were working, and They eventually closed our restaurant down. We did everything that we could to keep it afloat, cut costs and everything, but they had to make executive decision on the corporate level about what units to keep open and which ones not to keep open. And ours was one that ended up being closed. So I sat down for a bit, sat down a bit, and just took a hard look at my career, where it was, what was going on in the world. And I had always thought about teaching kind of as a future to do list item. Like, yeah, that would be cool at some point in the future, to maybe teach on the college level. And then I was just like, why don't I see if I even like it now? Right. So I started kind of looking around, and I saw a position at a high school um, that seemed perfect, for a culinary teacher. So I applied, interviewed, and was granted the opportunity to learn how to teach. And so this is my third year as a high school teacher. And boy, it's been an interesting ride. Very fulfilling, a lot of fun, a lot of work. And as a teacher who I'm coming from the industry, and am not a formally trained teacher, there's a lot of things that you have to do to get your license. And so I'm in the midst of that. And you have 3 years to do it. So I'm in the midst of that. So if y'all don't see me as much on social media and out here, that's why. That's why. But I'm enjoying it, and I think that this is something that I'll do until I decide to leave the working world again for entrepreneurship, because third time's the charm. So I'm also simultaneously building a restaurant consulting business now as I'm teaching. So I want to bring all of the things that I've been able to learn from the industry to your small to medium sized restaurants, and be able to share those experiences so that the staff can get better at bringing money to the bottom line for themselves and for the unit. So that's where we are, y'all. Whew. 52 minutes. I thought I was going to be in and out in like 30 minutes. But if you have any questions, comments, concerns about anything in my journey, let me know, right? There's some stuff I'm leaving out. I went back to Boston Market again too. I'll tell that story another day. Where is that in the timeline? I'll tell that story another day. I went back to Boston Market again. So remember, I told you that was my very, very first job, and then I got when I was 16. But I went back. I was hired as a general manager, and then they were doing some funny stuff, and somebody accused me of stealing. That's the only time I ever. No, second time. First time I ever quit a job on the spot. The second time was Sodexo at Emory, what I just told you, when they wouldn't give me my leave of absence. So twice I've again, I'll tell that story another day. What's the other thing I'm leaving out? I also worked for Carrabba's as a server. My first year teaching, I worked at Carrabba's at night and weekends and summertime. My first year. Yep. So that's where we are now in the story, and the story is still continuing and being built. And again, if you have questions about anything in the timeline, I just want to give y'all a little taste of the resume, baby. But I don't know everything, but I have had some awesome opportunities to learn from corporate brands with strong training programs. And so I want to bring those lessons that I was able to learn to the small to medium sized restaurants and help y'all grow. Help y'all grow like the big boys. So let's see what we can do together. All right. Let me know your questions, comments, concerns, and I want to know your story. All right. I'd love to get you on the podcast if you're somebody who's been in the industry for a while and have an interesting story to tell, because that's what this show is all about telling and sharing our stories so that hopefully somebody else can learn from them. So it's great chatting with y'all. I'm gonna go give me something to drink. Parched. I hope y'all have a great rest of the day or night, and I'll see you next time.